we are at a stage in our country's life where the private sector has to play a very critical role. And what we need to do is to create strong companies that are going to help fuel the growth in our economy. Would you agree with that? Okay. So good corporate governance practices instill in companies the essential vision, processes, and structures to make decisions that ensure longer-term sustainability. More than ever, we need companies that can be profitable as well as achieving environmental, social, and economic value for society. And that's a quote from Rachel Kite, who is a vice president with the International Finance Corporation, which is a division of the World Bank. Now, Sir Adrian Cadbury, I don't know if any of you have heard about Sir Adrian Cadbury. Anybody in the room has heard about Sir Adrian Cadbury? He's actually the author of the Code of Corporate Governance from the UK. He said corporate governance is a system by which companies are directed and controlled. What do you think he meant by that? Anybody might hazard a guess? Who has a responsibility for corporate governance in an organization? The board, that's right. So the board is the group that has a responsibility to direct and control the affairs of the company. Now, another leading proponent of corporate governance, Mervyn King, who is from South Africa and authored their code, said corporate governance is essentially about leadership. And I agree wholeheartedly with him, because it's the leaders in an organization, whether it's a private company or a publicly listed company or a public body or a not-for-profit organization. It is the leaders, the people who lead the company on the board of directors, the leaders in the senior management, who must ensure that the structures are there to bring about good governance. So when Mervyn King talks about leadership, there are a number of areas that he's looking at. Leadership for efficiency. And if companies are to be profitable, would you agree that they first have to be efficient? Okay, so corporate governance is about efficiency. You're not likely to get as much profitability if you're not efficient. And by being efficient, you can compete more effectively and produce jobs. So efficiency is a very key element in leading a company. For probity, and why do you think it's important for probity? What do we mean by probity? This is not a talkative group. I'd love to have a little mic that I could come and nudge you. For probity, what do we mean by that? Okay, transparency. And why is it important to have transparency and perhaps integrity in the running of a company? Why is that important? I know John is going to talk about raising capital after this. But certainly, if anybody in the room here is looking for an investor to join their company, transparency is a very key element. So probity is important because investors need to be assured that the management is behaving ethically and honestly with regards to the shareholders in the business. With responsibility. And more, and this is a global trend, and I think it's very evident in Jamaica, that if a company does not behave responsibly, and in a whole lot of spheres, if a company is not socially responsible, it's unlikely to attract the capital, and it's unlikely to attract even customers. I don't know how many of you have had experiences dealing with companies that perhaps are behaving irresponsibly. Anybody? I know that one of the things, I have a daughter, who if she deals with a company and something goes wrong, she vows, says, I'll never do business with them again. And that's really the power of the consumer. So if a company is not led responsibly, it's unlikely to grow and realize its potential as well. And in terms of accountability, leadership has to be both transparent and accountable to its shareholders and to its stakeholders. Now, let me just emphasize that if I start clipping along, Stephanie has asked me to deliver material that I would normally do in at least a day in 25 minutes. So I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible, and hopefully you can access the material afterwards. Okay. Corporate governance, in terms of the system, we can look at it in terms of a relationship, an agency relationship, and a stewardship relationship. So what do we mean by that? If you notice that schema has three main actors, the share owners, the managers, and the directors. The agency relationship refers to the fact that it's the share owners who provide capital for the managers to operate. And the directors, the managers report to the directors are appointed by and are responsible to the share owners. So those roles are especially important where you have share owners being different from managers. And perhaps for most of you, there isn't much of a difference because you may be, as a manager, the owner-manager, the main or the only shareholder. But certainly in companies where there is a separation, corporate governance becomes even more important. And for this relationship, for an effective relationship to be maintained between all of those parties, it is very important to have a high level of trust.